The story of Job is one of the most powerful and profound tales of faith, suffering, and ultimate redemption found in the Bible. It tells the story of a righteous and prosperous man whose life is suddenly upended by a series of devastating tragedies that test the limits of his unwavering devotion to God. Through his trials and tribulations, Job emerges as a towering figure of faith, his unwavering belief in the divine plan standing firm in the face of unimaginable hardship. At the heart of the story is the question of why the faithful must endure such profound suffering, even in the face of their piety and devotion. It is a tale that has resonated through the ages, offering comfort and inspiration to those who have faced their own trials, while also challenging us to contemplate the nature of righteousness, the meaning of faith, and the inscrutable ways of the divine. The story of Job begins by introducing us to its eponymous protagonist, a man described as blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Job 1 verse 1. Job was a wealthy landowner, prosperous in both his material possessions and his family life. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and was respected and revered throughout the land. One day, the heavenly court is assembled, and God boasts to Satan about Job's unwavering faith and devotion. Satan, ever the skeptic, challenges God, suggesting that Job's righteousness is simply a product of his comfort and prosperity. Does Job fear God for no reason? Satan asks, "Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." Job 1 verses 9 to 11. God, confident in Job's faith, grants Satan permission to test him, with the sole restriction that he cannot harm Job himself. And so begins Job's descent into a whirlwind of unimaginable suffering and loss. First, Job's livestock and servants are destroyed by a series of calamities: raiding Sabaeans, a fire from heaven, and a great wind that collapses his son's house, killing all 10 of his children. Devastated but still faithful, Job responds with the now famous words, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away, blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1 verse 21. Undeterred, Satan presses on, and God allows him to afflict Job's own body with a painful and disfiguring disease. Job is covered in painful boils from head to toe, and his suffering is so great that he scrapes himself with a piece of broken pottery, sitting in ashes as he struggles to find relief. Even as Job's wife urges him to curse God and die, Job 2 verse 9, he remains steadfast in his faith, declaring, "Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" Job 2 verse 10, through it all, Job never turns his back on God, even as his friends arrive to offer their condolences and attempts to make sense of his calamities. The friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, represent the conventional wisdom of the time, which held that suffering was a direct consequence of sin and that the righteous would be rewarded while the wicked would be punished. They try to convince Job that his afflictions must be the result of some hidden transgression, urging him to confess his sins and seek God's forgiveness. But Job steadfastly maintains his innocence, refusing to accept their arguments. He engages in a series of debates with his friends, challenging their simplistic notions of divine justice and asserting his own conviction that he has done nothing to deserve such punishment. "Though he slay me, I will hope in him." Job 13 verse 15, Job declares, his faith unshaken even in the face of such overwhelming adversity. As the debates continue, Job's friends become increasingly frustrated, and their arguments grow more strident and accusatory. They insist that Job must have sinned, that he is being punished for his wickedness, and that he should simply accept his fate and repent. But Job refuses to surrender his integrity, even as his own body and spirit are broken. Finally, a fourth voice enters the fray, a young man named Elihu, who had been listening to the exchanges. Elihu offers a different perspective, suggesting that Job's suffering is not a punishment, but rather a means of instruction and purification. He argues that God uses adversity to test and refine the faithful, that suffering can be a pathway to greater wisdom and understanding. Elihu's words strike a chord with Job, who begins to grapple with the deeper questions at the heart of his ordeal. He recognizes that his attempts to understand the divine plan have been limited by his own finite perspective, and he becomes increasingly humbled by the realization of God's unfathomable greatness and the limits of human knowledge. Just as Job is wrestling with these profound questions, God himself intervenes, speaking to Job out of a whirlwind. In a series of awe-inspiring and poetic declarations, God reminds Job of the majesty and power of the natural world, the intricate design of the cosmos, and the sheer scope of divine wisdom and understanding. God does not provide a direct answer to Job's questions, but rather challenges him to consider the vastness and complexity of creation, and to recognize the limits of his own comprehension. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Job 38 verse 4, God asks, asserting the fundamental truth that the ways of the divine are ultimately beyond human understanding. Humbled and awed by God's words, Job responds with a profound act of submission and trust. I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Job 42 verse 2, he declares, acknowledging the sovereignty of the divine and the inadequacy of his own attempts to make sense of his suffering. In the end, God restores Job's fortunes, granting him new children and replacing his lost possessions. But the true triumph of the story lies not in the material restoration of Job's wealth and family, but in the profound transformation of his spirit. Through his trials, Job has emerged as a towering figure of faith, his unwavering belief in God's ultimate wisdom and goodness serving as a shining example for all who struggle to make sense of life's deepest mysteries. The story of Job has been a source of inspiration and reflection for countless generations of believers, offering a powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit and the boundless grace of the divine. It reminds us that even in the midst of our darkest trials, we can find solace and redemption in the unwavering power of faith. For Job, the journey was long and arduous, a testament to the depth of his devotion and the resilience of his spirit. He endured unimaginable suffering, losing everything he held dear, and yet he never wavered in his belief that God's plan, though inscrutable, was ultimately just and good. In the end, Job's story is not just about the triumph of faith over adversity, but about the transformative power of suffering itself. Through his trials, Job is forced to confront the limitations of his own understanding, to grapple with the profound questions of the human condition, and to ultimately surrender himself to the sovereignty of the divine. It is a journey that resonates with all who have faced their own challenges and tribulations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find solace and strength in the unwavering power of faith. For in the story of Job, we see the human spirit at its most resilient, the soul at its most steadfast, and the divine at its most inscrutable and yet profoundly merciful. The tale of Job is a timeless masterpiece, a profound exploration of the human condition that speaks to the very heart of the religious experience. It is a story that has captivated and inspired believers for centuries, offering a powerful testament to the enduring power of faith and the transformative potential of suffering. At its core, the story of Job is a testament to the unwavering strength of the human spirit and the profound truth that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the faithful can find solace and redemption in the unfathomable wisdom of the divine. It is a story that reminds us that our trials and tribulations, though often beyond our understanding, can serve as a pathway to greater wisdom, deeper faith, and a more profound appreciation for the mysteries of the universe. As we delve into the story of Job, we are confronted with the fundamental questions that have plagued humanity since the dawn of time: the nature of suffering, the meaning of righteousness, the limits of human knowledge, and the ultimate purpose of our existence. And through Job's example, we are challenged to confront these questions with humility, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the divine plan. The story of Job is not just a tale of one man's triumph over adversity, but a universal story of the human experience, a testament to the resilience and transcendence of the human spirit. It is a story that speaks to the very core of our existence, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, we can find solace and strength in the unfathomable wisdom of the divine. As we journey with Job through his trials and tribulations, we are forced to confront our own doubts and fears, our own struggles to make sense of the world around us. And in doing so, we are offered a glimpse of the profound truth that lies at the heart of the human experience, that even in the face of unimaginable suffering, the faithful can find redemption and renewal in the boundless grace of the divine. The story of Job is a testament to the power of faith, the resilience of the human spirit, and the inscrutable weight of the divine. It is a story that has captivated and inspired generations of believers, and will continue to do so for generations to come. For in the tale of Job, we find not just a story of one man's triumph, but a universal story of the human condition, a story that speaks to the very essence of what it means to live, to suffer, and to believe.